Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and my guest today is a man named Justin Hanft. He is the director of the Chautauqua County Coalition for Education. Thank you for coming on today. Is this your full-time job?
This is, yeah. I do the Education Coalition work from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and even on Saturdays sometimes.
Oh, wow. And what's your job description exactly?
Yeah,
what are your job responsibilities?
Sure. So I'm the director of the organization. We're a newly formed nonprofit organization, Gail, as I mentioned to you in the break. And it's been an initiative that has been supported by the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce for the past 3 to 4 years. But this past July, we've established ourselves as our own separate nonprofit organization with a separate board of directors for a financial stability standpoint, so we can continue to carry out our mission.
Oh, okay. Now, what does Chautauqua County's future depend on?
That's a big question, right? In Chautauqua County, from an educational perspective, is pretty complex. There's a lot of good organizations throughout Chautauqua County, including our school districts, 18 of them, in fact, that are doing really great work, including BOCES, our Board of Cooperating Educational Services, as well as Jamestown Community College, Jamestown Business College, and SUNY Fredonia. So there's a lot of different institutions throughout Chautauqua County that are teaching students the skills of the future. And really what the Education Coalition and our mission is to try to align those resources and build on the capabilities that each one of those resources have to meet the evolving workforce challenges throughout Chautauqua County. So we do that by bringing together those partners, those organizations to have conversations with the private sector and industries like manufacturing and healthcare to look at what are the most in-demand occupations for those fields, right? And to figure out what type of training programs need to be started to be taught at an earlier age and work those types of training opportunities, those programs, into the school system so students today are learning the skills of tomorrow. Okay.
What are the two largest industry sectors within Chautauqua County?
Yeah, great segue. So, as I just mentioned, manufacturing and healthcare are really the two focus areas of the Education Coalition as far as a workforce standpoint goes. And that was primarily because of the data. Chautauqua County, the two largest industries are manufacturing and healthcare. Manufacturing is, roughly hovers around 17 to 18% of the workforce in Chautauqua County. So, I don't know if you knew some of the statistics, but in Chautauqua County there's about 56,000 people that go to work every single day. And about 9,000 of them go to work in manufacturing. So just from a sheer numbers perspective, there's a lot of folks that are involved in the manufacturing workforce. So that's one of the major areas that we wanted to focus this initiative on, to make sure that the school systems are putting out students with the skills that are in demand here locally, right in our backyard. Same goes for healthcare. Healthcare probably is somewhere around 23 to 24% of the workforce, because healthcare really has changed over the last several decades. The type of healthcare that individuals receive is a lot different. 15, 20 years ago, it used to be heads in beds. You received most of the care that you would in a healthcare setting at the hospital or in a facility like a hospital. Now today, healthcare, I should say, looks a lot different than that. There's a lot of different components to overall health and a lot of different organizations that participate in the activity of overall health. So there's a lot of different skills and a lot of different jobs and a lot of different occupations that are born out of that. So because of that, students need to be trained in all different areas of healthcare. So that's really sort of from a big picture standpoint that the Education Coalition is focused on, making sure that there's training programs available, readily available, and that are meeting the demand of the in-demand occupations in both healthcare and manufacturing, whether it's at JCC, SUNY Fredonia are good partners there as well, and then working it all the way back into our K through 12 school systems locally.
Okay. Now, how does Cummins fit into the picture? It had its start in southern Indiana?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So Cummins has been a major supporter, I should say, of the Education Coalition. Really, they're really at our core of why this initiative got started. They're one of the major employers that have been a partner with the Education Coalition back since 2012 when we first got going as an initiative. They actually provided some seed money as a kickstart to get this organization and this idea, this concept kind of up and off the ground. And they've been doing it in everywhere across the country in the United States where Cummins has a footprint or where they have a physical location. Southeast Indiana is Cummins' headquarters, actually.
Oh,
so they have a major footprint in Southeast Indiana and Columbus, and they originated this idea, these concepts, back in Southeast Indiana about 20 years ago.
Oh.
And they've been kind of, collecting sort of their best practices of how to do what we can kind of, look at as collaborative, community, collective impact type work. And, so they've been willing to share that type of information, to share, the process, so to speak, of stakeholder engagement, of community collaboration, and how to, best approach it from that perspective. So we've sort of adopted those fundamental principles and tried to communicate that here in our local community, since we also have a Cummins located here. Mike Abate, the plant manager, is one of our board members for the Education Coalition, so he sits on our board.
That's interesting.
So, and I've learned a lot from not only Mike, but from my entire board of directors. They all come with a background of a lot of experience in the nonprofit world, private sector as well as the education sector. So, a lot of great strategic minds, and trying to help navigate this community collective, and how do we best work together across the county to really try to move some big picture social complex, the educational system, as we just mentioned, is very complex in Chautauqua County, and what's required when the challenge is so complex is to have a clear set of goals and a way to achieve those goals.
Mm-hmm. So what is CCEC, and how has the area benefited from Cummins' participation and investment?
Yeah, so I said at the very beginning our mission is to align resources and build capabilities. Obviously we're focused on education, but truly at the heart of this we're also a workforce development initiative. But the four key areas that we've really decided to focus our energy around has been all the way back at the beginning of kindergarten readiness is a big focus area for us at this moment in time. Benchmarking and improving kindergarten readiness for students, so our students truly ready to begin in kindergarten. And there's a lot of national data that you can find out there that just explains the importance of types of social, emotional, behavioral levels that students need to be at before they even begin kindergarten. And students, I have students, my own son is 2 years old, right? And I just see the amount of things that he learns every single day, and he's only 2.
Right.
It's just amazing, right? And, we just want to make sure that, as a county as a whole, our students receiving that education or receiving that knowledge at a very early age, because that's where it all starts. Mm-hmm. So we're working with programs. Beth Starks, who actually runs the Chautauqua Lake Child Care Center over here, which is housed in Chautauqua Lake School District, is our subgroup chair for this area. She's really the expert in this field, in this space, and she's doing some fantastic stuff. So we're working with programs to try to do two things, really. Elevate the quality of child care centers in Chautauqua County, because just like anything, if you're going to go stay at a hotel, you want to know that the hotel is a good quality place, right? Is it a 5-star hotel, or is it a 1-star hotel? And that tells you a lot, right? Mm-hmm. They're doing the same type of thing through the Quality Stars program within child care to start to benchmark exactly what type of care that you should expect your child to receive at those types of facilities, those care providers.
Well, I remember when I was going into kindergarten, which was a very long time ago. It was in the 1950s, actually. And I remember no preparation. I think that back then a lot of mothers were still staying home and taking care of their children. So, but I remember there was no real preparation for kindergarten. They just took you in on the first day, you know, and that was it. So.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really starting to evolve, right? If you look at Beth's program and the staff that they have at her facility, many of them are trained and have four-year degrees in early childhood or even master's degrees in early childhood. So they know the types of learning that in the age levels and the types of accomplishments that students should be at depending on age. And that helps to increase the overall performance of these students, right? And it all leads into the next. So it's, there's data out there that proves, as students are more ready for kindergarten, then they'll not need the remediation for, once they hit third grade and start taking ELA assessments and so forth and those types of state standardized testing. So, it all leads into the next. So that's one of the focus areas because there's not a readily developed system countywide at every school district for kindergarten or pre-K programs on those types of offerings. So we're trying to help elevate the importance of those programs and try to get them established so that all students that are that young in age can participate in a high quality learning environment and so forth.
Okay. Now, what does the Chautauqua County Learning System, which is a multifaceted network, include?
Yeah, so there are a lot of players within the educational system of Chautauqua County, as I mentioned. But I think the difference and the nuance of the initiative of the Education Coalition is it's trying to help break down the silos of the educational system. If you're not a teacher, or if you're not a school counselor, or if you're a parent that doesn't have a student in the educational system, those systems can kind of be very siloed. So through our approach and through our process, right, we're making sure that the educational system is not just working separately by itself with them being the only responsibility for the outcomes of students. We're trying to bring together the private sector as well as the social sector, which would be the nonprofit organizations providing specific programming, whether it's Chautauqua Striders that does mentoring or a program like Dream It, Do It, which is an organization that I used to work for that is providing those experiential learning opportunities to middle school and high school students in the manufacturing field. Or there's programs through the Chautauqua County Health Network that are bringing experiential learning opportunities to students in the healthcare fields. So it's trying to break down those silos and have these conversations between organizations, students, and the school districts to open up students' minds and try to get them spark at an early age, what is it that I want to be when I get older? And can I find those types of jobs right here in Chautauqua County? And what we want to do is really start that dialogue, start that conversation, and then once we inspire that student to pursue those types of occupations, make sure that they're getting into the right pathway. Make sure that they're going to the right classes at their school districts and taking the right programs that are going to lead to that occupation. And then also try to help facilitate at the very end, so when they do graduate, the relationships between the local employers to try to identify that talent. Because let's face it, both in the healthcare and manufacturing fields, right now, there are jobs available in this county. Lots of jobs available in this county, and the employers are just struggling trying to find the talent that individuals that have those types of skills to fill those jobs. So there's a disconnect, right? And we're trying to close that disconnect.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What has the coalition focused its work on with aligning people with family sustaining career opportunities? But You kind of already spoke about that.
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit, but we can kind of add to it. I mean, that's something that I did leave out. You know, these two industries that we're focused on, manufacturing and in healthcare, they're good family-sustaining jobs. You know, that's what we're really looking to try to establish. You know, people that are pursuing these types of occupations in manufacturing, that's kind of you know, where I have my most experience from coming out of the Dream It Do It program. Is you know, right now the #1 occupation in manufacturing that employers can't find enough of is industrial equipment technologist, or folks that have a real strong maintenance background. So as manufacturing, if you think of it from a big picture perspective, becomes more and more automated, right? If you've walked into a Cummins facility lately, which many people have not, unless they work in manufacturing, right? So just that experience alone opens their eyes to the different types of jobs available in manufacturing. But if you walk into a facility, it's very complex. I mean, it's got you know, over millions and millions of dollars worth of machines, and you know, the individuals that know how to operate those machines are in very high demand. But even more demand than that right now are the individuals that know how to fix those machines and get them back up and operating. Okay, so that's where we've recently, in the past 6 months to a year, have been trying to focus on making sure that the programming available is training on the right skills in that field. So we've worked with Jamestown Community College to you know, make sure that their curriculum and their training is kind of up to snuff and up to speed, which it is. I mean, we went through a curriculum review with them and local employers, regional employers throughout the southern tier, in fact. And that's really kind of where a lot of the energy has been focused around. So, but these degrees that you could get, so from a certificate program at JCC in industrial equipment technology, somebody that graduates with that degree, which only could take them, you know, if they go full time, about a year to complete, right, could come out making anywhere between $35,000 and $50,000 a year with overtime. So we're talking about some good family-sustaining wages, right? And you don't have to collect a lot of debt to go pursue an education like that. You know, you go to Jamestown Community College, very reasonable, very affordable, along with, you know, your TAP and Pell state aid. And you know, within a year's time, you could, you know, probably find yourself in high demand working for a facility like Cummins or other employers that are desperately looking for this type of talent.
Oh, that's good. Tell us about some positive results that have occurred in the Education Coalition's work to create middle school to high school alignment with a focus on manufacturing.
Sure. So I think the first place that I would start there, Gail, would be the Pathways in Technology Early College High School program that was established. To kind of give you a little bit of the background history on that, it was a grant that Dunkirk City School Districts went after, but they did it in collaboration with the Education Coalition, the Chamber of Commerce and Manufacturers Association, and also BOCES, because BOCES is really the lead facilitator, but Dunkirk City School Districts was the grant recipient. And the reason why they did that is because we wanted to open up the opportunity of this program that hadn't yet been created yet, to all of the component school districts in Chautauqua County, and actually the entire BOCES footprint. So BOCES covers a 27 school district throughout all of the ones in Chautauqua County, but also 9 in southern Erie County as well. So any one of those 27 school districts could participate in this Pathways Technology Early College High School program. And what it is, it's a program, it's a cohort model, okay, so it starts in 9th grade, and then it builds on itself. So after the students graduate from 9th grade, they go into 10th grade. But each one of these students that go to this program can graduate with a 2-year degree at no cost to the family in one of 3 pathways. Basically machining, welding, or mechanical design, which is sort of an engineering track. So those are the 3 pathways. So it's a little complex in a sense that you know, the school districts have to buy into the program first, so they have to purchase seats to be able to offer it back to their local component school districts. But then the students, you know, that are participating in the program work in a very different type of learning environment. So they're signing up for this program as an 8th grader. So they're sitting down with their family, their parents, their school counselors, and saying, is this the type of job that I really want as an 8th grader? So they're making a pretty big commitment, but at the same time on the back end, they're also receiving a 2-year degree from JCC at no cost to the family. So it's a very competitive program to get into, and it's very unique in the sense of it's very project-based, so they're doing a lot of work in teams. They're learning their English, math, and those types of core classes right at the P-TECH facility too, so a little bit different than maybe some of the other traditional BOCES programs where you would go to your home school and get sort of those English, that history, and those types of classes, and then you would jump on a bus and then go to BOCES for your actual CTE work. This is a little bit different in that nature because they're going all the way to the Laguita Center in Fredonia, and they're going to P-TECH, and they're learning all of those things in that environment from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. So right now that program is in its 3rd year. There's 3 classes, so there's a 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. And there's about, I think, around 80 students in the program. That are going to come out with one of those types of occupations. So we're really starting to see the efforts of our labor and from our community collaborations develop that pipeline, because employers know that in the next couple of years here, students are going to start graduating with these 2-year degrees, and they'll easily be able to find talent.
Oh, yeah, that sounds really helpful for the kids to get a start in their adult life. What are STEM-based education programs?
Yeah.
STEM, that's initials for something?
That's an acronym, yeah. So unfortunately, the education world is really great at coming up with a lot of acronyms that you got to remember, right? Which I think adds to this whole issues of silos, because if you're not working in that world, it's hard to understand what all this stuff means, right? But STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Some have even started to include the A as well to stand for arts, so STEAM they've called it. And I think ultimately what that acronym is trying to get across to the general public is that these are the disciplines that are really critical. And these are the skills that are going to be in high demand, the next 5, 10, 15 years. So we need to start developing programs that are going to be training students on those types of skills and trying to incentivize students to, stick with their math classes, stick with, their science classes, understand the connections and the dots between, how is this art class going to help me in math, and how is this art class going to help me if I want to pursue an occupation in engineering, or so forth, and those types of things. I think they've started to come up with these acronyms to communicate those types of things to students, because really, at a very young age, I can remember back when I went to school, in 8th and 9th grade, are you really sure what you want to do? No, because the world, students at that age, the world is, even smaller, right? I mean, they're inside their own little bubble. Right. So trying to connect the dots for students, I think, is important and is critical. So the better we can try to, communicate how those classes lead to certain occupations out in the workforce, the better we're going to get. So a lot of the programs that we've already talked about today are all focused on STEM, right? So the healthcare industry, the manufacturing industry, those are critical skills that individuals need to have walking in the door day one in order to be able to fulfill the types of responsibilities that those jobs create.
And it gives them a chance to try something out and see if they really want to do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why we've worked into some of our catalytic projects, whether it's P-TECH, Dream It, Do It, the Chautauqua County Health Network carrying out activities. The Chautauqua WIB does some good stuff too through job fairs, internship placements, and so forth. All of those types of opportunities, while they're learning in their home schools, enable students to start, even if they realize that they went on a job shadow or they went on an internship experience for a couple of weeks or maybe a semester and found out hey, that's not at all what I want to be when I get older, right? Well, at least they determined that at an earlier age, because I think you can read this in the papers, especially nationally. You know, it's a conversation piece a lot with education, that there's a lot of students out there accumulating a lot of debt. Right, you know, college is becoming more and more expensive.
Right.
And I can share from my own personal experiences. You know, I switched majors in college. You know, and that put me behind the 8 ball a little bit because I had to take different classes. Right, so I didn't graduate on time. I graduated a semester behind. So you know, that accumulated more debt for me. You know, I wish I would have known that this is what I wanted to do at an earlier age. So we're really trying to encourage students to find out what it is exactly that they want to do earlier, and we're working with all our partners throughout Chautauqua County in order to do that.
Okay, let's talk about your goals here a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, what you have, let's see, education, economics, and partnerships. Would you say something about these?
Sure, yeah. So I guess where I could focus on right now would be the partnerships. We probably haven't talked about that as much. And this really bears out of the Southeast Indiana relationship through Cummins that we've had, you know, since we've got this initiative going and since we got the organization established. We've adopted the process which we have coined the stakeholder engagement process, and it's really a way of thinking. It's a fundamental shift in the way organizations can better collectively work together. Ultimately, before you can do that, everybody that comes to the table needs to have a different style of thinking, right? It requires 2 different types of leadership. Every organization, every individual in those organizations, right, are kind of structured in a top-down hierarchy, right? You got the director, and then you got the people working on the initiatives or the programs or the services underneath that director, right? And they all have their specific roles and responsibility, okay? But when we're talking about a community and we're bringing organizations together, we need to not only have our own personal agendas, but we need to think bigger picture, right? The sum of the parts is the most important thing. And fundamentally, it takes a shift of, okay, what can we collectively get accomplished that we can't do by ourselves? Not to say that the assets that each organization and each individual from that organization isn't bringing something to the table, because they are, and that's what we need to lean on, right? But we need to figure out, okay, what can we change in the system and how it's producing the types of you know, students with the types of degrees that the local workforce is looking for differently, because right now, as it stands, it's not meeting the demand. So it makes us think a little bit differently, right? So collective leadership, you know, is a different style of leadership that we're thinking across the aisle, not top down like an organization would, with strategic objectives and you know, specific purposes, right? We're sort of working to try to move big picture needles. You know, some of the measures that we're talking about here on our goal tree, you know, how do we, from a county's perspective, you know, really try to help move the needle on, you know, quality and supply of workforce to meet that employer demand? How do we move the needle on some big picture things like college attainment? How do we get more people in Chautauqua County college educated, and so forth? But not only just college educated, educated on the types of, you know, occupations or in-demand jobs that are required, right? Because we don't want just students, like I said, going back to that first comment of just going to school, going to college, going to college, going to college, thinking that that's the only way towards success. Because although college is great, right, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not. You know, I have a master's degree, but I came back to this county looking for a job in education, and there wasn't a lot of teaching jobs 10 years ago available when I got my degree, right? So I was substitute teaching for a couple of years and just trying to feel it out. And but I was sort of, you know, told, you know, from day one that, oh yeah, if you get this degree, you'll be good. You know, you'll find a job right away. Well, that wasn't the case for me. I had to continue to look for different types of opportunities. So we want to make sure that at least for the majority of students that are going into these occupations, that there is a demand, and we can quickly try to find and fill them into those jobs that are required. So we really lean on our process in order to get that accomplished.
Okay. Tell us some things about the work that you actually do.
Yeah. So the way we're set up to try to carry out some of this work, ultimately what we do is we hold 6 full group meetings a year. So every 2 months, starting on in January. We just had one actually this past week. On the 4th Tuesday of every month in the morning, we hold an hour meeting where we provide updates on our catalytic projects. So those organizations that are carrying out the specific programs that we're talking about here today, it's important to, with a program comes a lot of information, right? When's the next job fair? When's the next internship opportunity? Where are these programs taking place? What school districts are participating? What employers are participating? There's a lot of information when you have a program, right, that needs to be, shared back to the community so that everybody is aware of what's going on. So that continuous communication piece is important. So that's where we do that, is we do it at our full group meetings, and we try to move where we're having our full group meetings around so people have an opportunity to go into a school district. Our last meeting was at Jamestown High School in the library, and we had about 50 community members a part of that meeting. We've held them at BOCES in the past. We've held them at Dunkirk City School District. We've gone to Cummins Engine. We've gone to JCC. So we try to move the meeting around to help get people to break out of those silos, go to these different organizations, make sure they're networking and meeting with key community people who are working in the educational system, and then from there, really that's really our communication piece. Where we do our work is really in our subgroups. So we have identified a chairperson that leads the subgroup effort. In manufacturing, it's J.U. Kulkrich, who also is the director. He's leading the Chautauqua County, should mention the Dream It, Do It program in Chautauqua County. And he's also a representative of the Manufacturers Association. He's leading our subgroup in manufacturing. I mentioned Beth Starks leading our subgroup in the early childhood kindergarten readiness space. And then also Ann Abdella, who's leading our subgroup in the healthcare workspace. And all of these individuals are experts in their fields because they come from those backgrounds, so it was strategically identified that they should be the individuals that are leading these subgroups. And then when in each of those subgroups, which meet in the off months of our full group meeting, they really get to the core of developing the program, making sure that it's providing the experiential learning opportunities, and it's got the right curriculum that students are being trained on the day-to-day type activities.
Okay. Now, how can people get involved?
So I would say if there are people out there on your show that are watching here today that wanted to volunteer, the best thing would be to first come to a full group meeting, and all of that information is shared right on our website. You can go to educoalition.com or follow us on Facebook. I know social media is very popular today. We try to post all of our events and when our next meeting is going to be held. The next one will be the 4th Tuesday in January. They can kind of get a feel or a sense of exactly the type of work that we do because our presentation is about an hour and there's a lot of activity that's going on. So somebody might have an interest in early kindergarten readiness type stuff, volunteering with some of the programs here locally that are carrying out that type of work, or with manufacturing, or with healthcare, and there's a lot of different ways that they could participate, either coming in and speaking to students in small classes, offering a job shadow or an internship. If you're a local company listening right now, we're always looking for local opportunities to send students out of the classroom into a work environment to gain that experience, because there's no substitute for experience, right? I mean, we can train students in the classroom all day long, but the actual physical nature of doing the work is the most important thing.
Okay. And your mission, what is your mission?
Yeah, so our mission, kind of going back to the beginning again, is just really to align resources, because I've emphasized this a lot. Align resources, build capabilities. The complexity of the educational system in Chautauqua County makes it feel sometimes like we're trying to boil the ocean a little bit when we have so many one-off and so many different programs doing such great work. It's how do we collectively all bring that together, because at the end of the day, there's no one program or no one initiative that's going to solve all these issues, right? We got to all be doing it together. And that's the best way that we're going to, move the needle on some of these bigger picture things like college attainment, kindergarten readiness skills, making sure that the employers have the workforce that they need. So by doing it collectively, it saves money. I think it saves resources. We have a lot of great foundations in our county that give and give and give to a lot of different programs, but I think the programs that are the most successful have really strong relationships and really strong partnerships between a multitude of different organizations to try to help carry out that work. It's not the individual program that's really making that outcome. It's the relationships between organizations and different people locally that are going to make a stronger impact on that program, whatever that program may be. So that's really what our mission's about, trying to increase scalability, capability. It's another way to think about it. So if there's a good program, for example, in the kindergarten readiness space, Parents as Teachers is a fantastic program that we've been working with that's really focused on parent engagement. So teaching parents the proper way to educate their students or their younger children at an early age and the type of learning opportunities that they should be reaching at certain points in time. And that program's fantastic, but right now it's only being offered at Southwestern, Frewsburg, and Jamestown. So how do we work with that organization to try to scale that program and that offering up to all of the school districts throughout Chautauqua County? So the Education Coalition is taking that on, championing that, and trying to look at scalability, right? It all comes back to money, yes, a little bit, right? It costs money to run some of these programs, but I think ultimately we just need to create some more of the relationships to let everybody know that this program's doing good work, and it is hitting on the outcomes that we're looking for as far as parent engagement. And how do we scale some of that type of stuff up?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that sort of impresses me about this is what you said about they can have, is it a 2-year degree that they can get in high school?
At the PTech program?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Pathways in Technology, Early College, High School.
Yeah.
Is a 2-year degree, yep.
And without any cost to the family. That sounds like it would make these educations available to children living in poverty even, and it kind of helps them make a good life for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that's, I mean, if you look at, our goal tree, one of the things that we're really trying to do here with this initiative is reduce poverty, reduce the number of children in poverty.
Well, let's bring that up on the screen so the viewing audience can see it, and I'll let you explain it to our viewing audience.
Yeah, I don't know if they can fully see it, but if you can't, this goal tree that we do follow, it's really kind of, what keeps us grounded and focused on the major issues that we're looking at here, and to try to support the educational system. They can find it right on our website, which is also listed on the goal tree there as well, our educoalition.com. You can download our goal tree and what we're really focused on. But ultimately, what do we make a difference on, and the outcomes that we're trying to move the ball down the court on are making sure that employers have the workforce that they need, improve the tax base, reduce poverty, reduce the number of children in poverty. All of that stuff is critically important, and we sort of identified the areas in which we can really try to influence and make a difference on that we think will help alleviate some of those challenges throughout the county as it pertains to education and workforce. So that's what we're focused on. How we carry out that work is really through our subgroups and through our chairs and through our partnerships throughout the county. So I think it's a little bit it's slow moving, but we're getting there, and we're really starting to establish some of these strong partnerships and strong relationships throughout the county. So I'm really excited about it.
Okay, we've got another picture we want to show you guys when Chris brings it up here for us. There.
So that's also kind of going back to our process, right? So if you're thinking of it, from a collaboration standpoint or coalition building. Okay, so any community, right? If you're trying to identify a key community issue, this is the playbook, and these are the types of resources that we've really tapped into from our partners in Southeast Indiana, thanks to our partnership with Cummins Engine, that we've been, able to leverage and use. This took a lot of time, energy, money, resources to develop this type of material and this understanding of how communities can better, work together and how to become more efficient. And ultimately, where it leads to is a higher quality of life in general for everyone. And we're trying to, a high tide raises all boats. And that's what we're trying to get accomplished with the educational system here in Chautauqua County is, how do we better collectively work together, help people see their responsibility, their role in the system when it comes to organizations, but also, help develop pipelines of students that are going into high demand occupations. So once they come out of high school, if they determine that they want to go right into a job, they can find a job right away. If they want to continue their education, we have the right educational institutions that can provide the types of training that they're looking for. We can get them directed in that direction right away, and so forth. So, I mean, ultimately, we're trying to really elevate, the entire educational system here in Chautauqua County, and this is the process that we do it, and we go about it through co-creating solutions together.
Mm-hmm. Now, what other manufacturing jobs are available in Chautauqua County besides Cummins? What other companies are there?
There's lots of companies, so that's a good point. We should probably bring up a couple of our other partners or other stakeholders that have been engaged in this type of work. Brad Van Riper from Trucklight has been a strong partner and also sits on our Education Coalition board, and they're an organization that has been heavily involved in the Education Coalition from day one. There's a lot of great companies. I can't list them all off the top of my head, but another big one that has been kind of on the top of the community radar recently has been the Athenix organization that's just establishing themselves in the Dunkirk area. And they're the oncology pharmaceutical drug company that's going to be making cancer pills up in the Dunkirk area, and they are going to require about 450 employees once they open their facilities, which is looking like around 2020. So that's a lot of people that need to fill a lot of jobs, right? So they've been a part of some of these conversations and helping us try to identify the types of occupations that they're looking for. But there's been a lot of good partners: Artone Manufacturing, Ring Precision, Rand Machine. A lot of these facilities in the Jamestown-Falconer area have been participating in these conversations. Nestle Purina, Fieldbrook Foods, Excelco Newbrook. There's a multitude of manufacturers, right? Going back to our first conversation at the very beginning, there's over 9,000 people that go to work every single day in manufacturing. It's still a popular industry in Chautauqua County that's providing a lot of good family-paying jobs every single day.
Is Marlon Rockwell still around?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. I haven't heard anything about it in a long time.
Yeah.
But I knew there was such a place.
Yeah.
But okay, now what about the healthcare jobs? The healthcare in the community. What places are involved there?
Sure, yeah. So the Chautauqua County Health Network really is our champion carrying out the types of programs, and they're the ones that also bring together the healthcare organizations in the facilities. So whether it's UPMC, WCA, Brooks Memorial, all these different organizations, Lutheran Social Services, all these different organizations that are providing healthcare, services that are also looking for the types of talent that they're, that is in demand. I know recently that that Anna Nadella led a charge with JCC to review some of the nursing curriculum, because I think nursing is the top of one of the in-demand occupations here locally, and there's some things that are changing in that arena where it comes to requirements of a bachelor's degree in nursing and so forth. So they were looking at some different types of opportunities. I know with the advancements of technology and a lot of data collection in healthcare overall, that's creating a lot of new jobs that maybe didn't exist 5-10 years ago, right? So those are also some additional areas of complexity that have been being added. So she's really our champion in that space. I don't come with experience from the healthcare arena. I lean on Ann to carry out some of that work. So.
I'm not sure what this means.
What is it? Oh, Marlon Rockwell is now SKF. Okay.
What does
Yeah.
that mean?
SKF is the facility in Faulkner. They make
Oh.
the ball bearings. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Yep. Didn't know it from that name, but yeah, there's still existence.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
So yep.
Oh, SNF is a new name for
SKF.
it.
Yep.
SKF is
Yep.
a new name for it.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
SKF
So,
Arrowington. Yep.
So anyways, okay, now I've got that straight, I guess. So how do they go about with the jobs in the healthcare? How do they go about getting their training that way? Is this within the school system, or do kids get sent to the different facilities?
Yeah, so there's some, for example, I'll use Jamestown High School.
Okay.
Has sort of restructured their high school through what they call their academy models, academy programs. So in ninth grade, students start to identify themselves with what type of, career they would want to go towards. And I think they have about 7 different academies at Jamestown High School. 2 of the academies we work very closely with because they do kind of fall in the same focus area as us with manufacturing and healthcare. I actually got to go in and speak on what they call their academy days. They try to bring in outside professionals to speak to a multitude of their students, depending on the types of academy that you're going in and speaking with. But they're pre-med and health academy, so these students start to identify themselves that these are the types of occupations that they want to consider and pursue. And so their health academy would go out and do all sorts of experiential learning opportunities, whether it's job shadowing or just hear a presentation from a nurse or a doctor or a different type of professional in the healthcare sector. So they would gain that insight, gain that knowledge, get to see a little bit of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis to be a doctor or to be a nurse or to be, a different individual in the healthcare field. And, then it kind of, helps them, connect the dots, like we said. So, Jamestown High School has been doing it that way. I know other school districts are participating in other formats as well. But they've just been a very close partner of ours from day one with the Education Coalition, so we're very familiar with their programs and try to elevate what they're doing and try to make those connections. I know, JCC's got College Connections programs, so there are eligible college courses that school districts are offering at the high school level for students and so forth, so to try to connect them to college credit at an earlier age. I'm not sure if there are offerings like that in the healthcare space or not, but I know that JCC has a fantastic nursing program that is running at like full capacity, and it's almost competitive program to get into. These students are coming out with a 2-year degree and they're becoming registered nurses, and like I said, that's an in-demand occupation in the healthcare field, and care providers can't find enough of these individuals.
I know somebody who is a practical nurse, and it seems that she told me that she got her education at the Job Corps over in Cassadaga. Are you affiliated with them?
We are, yeah. The Job Corps is also another one of our stakeholders. They're a partner of ours, so they have a variety of programs over at the Cassadaga Job Corps. Have been an active participant in some of our stuff. They attend our full group meetings and they share information on the programs that they're working on, and we try to connect the dots, and they're always attentive. They're very attentive, I should say, to the local demand for what type of jobs are needed, because they curtail the programs internally at their facility to meet those types of demands. So they're always participating in Dream It, Do It for their, they also have, I think, electrician program. They have a couple other programs that are kind of focused on the trades, but are very closely related to the types of skills that are needed in manufacturing, so they participate in some of the manufacturing opportunities as well. one of the big things from an event standpoint, from a project standpoint, that we've established that we're pretty fond of, it wasn't necessarily through the work of the coalition, but it was through the work of Dream It, Do It and partners, was our STEM Wars event. I don't know how much time we have, but we
have over 7 minutes.
Okay. We have this event in the spring that is housed at Jamestown Community College in the physical education complex, so it's in their gym. It takes place in March. This year it will be March 14th. It's called STEM Wars, so going back to that acronym, we're focused on science, technology, engineering, and math skills, and we had over about 950 students attend from about 20 different schools, 16 different school districts. And we also, in addition to them competing in a variety of different competitions based on those disciplines, they also got to interact with employers. We had about 35 to 40 employers set up with tables, displays, educating students on the types of jobs, what those companies do every single day. So you mentioned like SKF. SKF was at that event. They bring their ball bearings and show students like, hey, we're making ball bearings that are going into jet engines or helicopters all over the world, right? So it's just really amazing product that is developed right here in our backyard that a lot of people have no idea about. They don't realize the types of manufacturing that's going on or the healthcare opportunities that are available. So we provide this platform. Almost like a sporting event, but it's focused on education, and it gives students the opportunity to demonstrate their aptitude in front of local employers at the same time. So it's really, really neat.
Well, that's really nice. I was just kind of curious, how did you go about deciding to do the kind of work that you're doing now?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a good question. So I actually went to school in college. I was really interested by political science. I really have always been interested how communities work. That's always kind of been something that has been a passion of mine. The complexities of how there's so many people that go to work every single day. There's so many good nonprofit organizations. There's so many private sector organizations that are doing things. But how communities collaborate with one another, I think, has been a passion of mine and just an interesting thing for me. So I mean, it's almost like kind of I fell into this opportunity really. I came back, wanted to go into education, wanted to come back as a teacher in history. That was my education degree, and wasn't finding a full-time opportunity. So I jumped on board with another organization that I'm still involved with. I actually sit on the board for Chautauqua Leadership Network. And from there, the second class that they had, which was focused on economic and workforce development, I met my future boss, Todd Tranum, and from there it's been kind of, the rest of the story is still yet to be complete. We're still working together. I've learned a lot from Todd. He's been a great mentor and a great leader for me personally, because he's got such a great strategic mind. And collectively we try to help build up the Dream It, Do It program that I worked with for a couple of years, and now I'm in this role now, which is a little bit different, a little bit higher level, but I really enjoy it. I really do. I feel very passionate about wanting to try to make a difference here in my own county, where I'm from, my hometown, and I just enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy trying to bring people together to try to figure out ways to better work with one another, because I think it's important. I think it's important for our future generation. I think they deserve it. I think they're our future.
Well, I'm glad that you do the work that you do, because it sounds like you're probably helping a lot of people. Have you taken a public speaking course? It just kind of flows out of you.
Sure.
So,
well, but by nature of my role, I guess I do have the opportunity to speak in front of audiences and in front of people frequently. But I did take one, I think, early in college. I don't know if it helped much. I think, like I said, going back to experience, there's no substitute for experience. You just got to do it, right? You just got to train yourself. You just got to get in front of audiences and make sure you keep honing your message and you get better at saying what you're wanting to try to get across. So that's why I never turned down an opportunity, and I appreciate you having me on your show, Gail, because I really think that hopefully this information is getting out there, and hopefully we are making a
Well,
difference.
hopefully people who are watching this, who maybe have children, can encourage them to get involved in this program. Do you do anything with different lines of work outside of manufacturing and healthcare?
For right now, that's really our main focus. One of our mantras is start small, aim high, think big. So, we're starting with these two industries in mind. There are obviously other industries and other occupations that you can go in that have been on our radar, and we're always, keeping an open mind. Not to say that the Education Coalition couldn't one day be focused on those industries as well. But for right now, we're just trying to, be more efficient and try to get some things that we think are important accomplished in those arenas. So, but I would encourage any parent that wants to get involved, come to our full group meeting, because really, they're the number one stakeholder that we're all trying to reach, because parents, outside of personal experience that students can, attain themselves, parents are really the biggest influencer when it comes to, where their student decides the types of jobs that they want to go for. There's data to show that. So we would encourage parents to attend some of our meetings. They're a key stakeholder. We'd also encourage parents to just become more active at their own students' school level, get involved, getting, with, whether it's, just asking the school counselor, hey, what are the types of occupations that, my student be looking at? What are the types of programs that my student could take advantage of? Those types of things, be involved in your student's education, because it's important.
Yeah, I interviewed somebody a couple of weeks ago, a pharmacist, and asked her why she decided to become a pharmacist, and she said, well, her mother handed her a list of different jobs she could have. Yeah, I suppose that maybe the parents were going to be paying for college or something, and so she picked pharmacy, but I didn't know that people did things like that, handing their kids a list. Well, this is the list of things we're going to allow you to be. That was. Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny. I'd never heard of that before. I usually figure people have some sort of dreams or something that they want to pursue. Yeah. I interviewed back during the summer. I interviewed an opera singer. And she just heard I asked her why she became an opera singer, and she said she was riding in the car one day with her mom, and when she was a little girl, and they were hearing some opera music on NPR radio, and just out of the blue, she said that's what I want to do when I grow up, and she is an opera singer, an adult opera singer now. So I think it's kind of amazing when people at that young of an age come up with an idea like that, and then they stick with it and actually become what they wanted to become from that young of an age. Sometimes it seems like when you're a child, you go through different phases where you have different ideas about what you want to do.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, and you never know what's going to spark a student's interest. And really, ultimately, at the core of all of this, we're trying to just start a conversation, a dialogue, and getting them to think about what do they want to be when they get older, and we want to try to start that dialogue a little bit earlier, and try to connect them to the right programs, the right initiatives that are going on throughout our county, because there's so many good people and good organizations that are doing great work.
Well, thank you again for being on today. We've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives.
Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome. And I'll see the rest of you in a couple of weeks. So.